Well, that wasn't good. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of ECH Postgame Live after another brutal game against the San Jose Sharks. The Kraken lose both halves of the back-to-back against a team that they really needed to get some points against, a team that was beatable. But at the end of the day, the Kraken are just not playing very good hockey right now, and they're capable of losing to anybody. They lose again tonight. A lot to break down on this one. Yeah, I see a lot of the comments in here right off the bat. I think, I'll start from Sarah here. I'm very sad now. It is kind of sad at this point. And honestly, in general, my main takeaway from this is I'm just worried about what this Kraken team really is, because if you have a team that plays the way that they've played, heck, really the last month or so. I mean, you could even go back to, after the Vegas game, right? They weren't playing the best hockey. They faced some teams that were also not very good. And so they got some wins there. They picked up some points. But at the end of the day, we just haven't seen enough to really confirm that they are any better than the low end of mid. And especially if Joey Decord is not going to be playing lights out in net. I thought he was okay in this one, but he did allow a soft one too. If you're not going to get all world goaltending, I don't know, this team, it's worrying me how bad they could potentially be. So that's kind of where I'm at after this one, and we can kind of go into the details. By the way, it is me starting off the post game live. I am not at Climate Pledge Arena. Dylan is there, though. Dylan will join us after talking to the players and to Coach Dan after this one, and I'm really curious what they're going to have to say after this game. I was in San Jose yesterday after the game last afternoon, and talking to the players, talking to Dan. Wasn't a lot of very long answers. It seemed like the guys maybe didn't kind of want to ruminate on that one. They'd rather go out the next day and go right the wrongs and play better. Well, they didn't. So we'll see what they have to say after this one. Very interested to see when Dylan comes back. But let's just dive right into chat here. A lot to unpack, given where the Kraken are at right now. Aaron starting it off saying goal lead. I think Mackenzie Blackwood did play a very good game for San Jose, but I don't know I'd say the Kraken were goalied. I think a lot of the chances the Kraken had were due to score effects. The fact that they were down 4-0 and then were able to pile on a lot of chances. They had some good ones in the first period, but I really don't think they outplayed the Sharks by that big of a margin in this game. And especially in that second period, I know the Kraken had the lion's share of the expected goals, but looking at some of the goals against, I mean, those are plays that you can't let happen. So I don't know that I'd throw this entirely in the goal lead category. I don't think we should let them off the hook for that. I don't think it was entirely that. Four Horsemen, I think we're supposed to beat the Sharks. Yeah, I mean, the Kraken are supposed to beat the Sharks. I know San Jose has had a good run of late. They have surprised some teams, but at the end of the day, this was a team that was picking number 1 overall in the draft just this very year. And I know Macklin Celebrini's given them quite a boost, but they're still a bottom 5 team in the league. I mean, I guess now they're what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7th worst in the NHL after this win by points. Although I think points percentage, they're still probably they're 4th worst in the league. Like, this is still not a good hockey team. So we got to keep that in mind as far as quality of competition. Like, this is not some great team that they lost to twice. Randy with the hot trash. B, I'm sorry. Since when is that goalie interference? I know we would have lost regardless, but how? Yeah, I was not sure about that. Look, I don't understand goalie interference. I don't know anybody that does definitively, because, I mean, yes, there was a little contact. Yanni was in the crease. Seemed like it wasn't close enough to establish that it happened, and then it immediately caused Blackwood to not be able to do his job. But yeah, ultimately it was inconsequential in this game. But I'm with you. I don't understand that call. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter here. Mark Cass, season's done. Can't come back from this. If they can play better, look, we've seen them play better than this year. They're going to need some major things to go their way to turn it around, and they've got a challenging road trip upcoming. It's not over yet. There's plenty of season to go. I'll stop short of saying that it's completely over, but if they're going to play like this the rest of the way, then yes, it is over. They're going to need to improve. That's for sure. Bandage with the wow, just wow. And yeah, Randy, we lost to Anaheim once and San Jose twice in a week by 7 goals. I think it was also the most goals the Sharks have allowed in a 3-game stretch. I mean, the Kraken have allowed in a 3-game stretch ever. So that's not good. Let's see. At B pointing out, tied with the Sharks in the standings. Don't want to embrace the tank, but it feels like the tank is embracing us regardless. I think that's what I said yesterday after the game, where if things do go south, if that's the universe that we're in, where it goes south, it's going to be one where the Kraken don't really have much of a choice. The tank is going to embrace them rather than the other way around. JTB asking, do we believe that Dan has already lost the room? Players don't seem to respond or care about Dan's proposed system. I think this road trip is going to be a big test to see, can this group kind of bounce back and bring a little bit more? And I hesitate to even put it in terms of Dan losing the room or not, because he's a first year coach. This shouldn't be happening this early on. And I think if you don't see the effort come from the group, if they don't respond to this, if they don't play better, I think you just have to point your finger at the players. I mean, these are two very different coaches that they haven't been able to, seems like, respond to. And so I think the blame, if it doesn't turn around, has to go squarely on the players at this point. But we'll see what Bilesma and the coaching staff can do to get better out of this group. We got a couple super chats here. Thank you for those. We'll start off with Savvy here. I wonder why the Montour-Alexiak D pairing was changed. Thoughts? So my theory on this, and it was a little puzzling to see this. Obviously, Vince Dunn coming back into the lineup, that's going to be the big thing that causes the change. So Dunn and Larson back together was going to happen. And so then you look at the second D pair, and I really think it speaks to Dan Bilesma's confidence in Riker Evans and wanting to get him more ice time, not wanting him to be relegated to a third pairing role, probably feeling that he earned a second pairing role given how he played in Dunn's spot. And so I understand him maybe wanting to try that in this game. I think Riker Evans still over 20 minutes of ice time in this one. And I think really it just speaks to that Dan liked how Riker was playing and wanted to reward him. That said, I would probably go back to Montour-Alexiak next game if it was me in charge. I think Dan's tried a couple games now with experimenting with the D pairs. So far, it just hasn't really worked out. I didn't really like the D pairs as much today, even though I think Vince Dunn helped quite a bit. You got to keep Dunn Larson together because they're so good, but I would go back to Montour-Alexiak, even if it does mean Evans on the third pair. You can rotate him in sometimes, maybe even with Larson. I don't know, if you want to create some looks there to try and add some more offense. And Vince Dunn with over 26 minutes of ice time in this game. So they threw him right back into the deep end there. No holding back for Vince Dunn. Then another super chat here from that Kraken fan page. Thank you. Bob Wood's defense /PK sucks. Campbell's power play is terrible. And this team has zero fight, zero net front presence, no offense, especially against good goaltenders, and have many players that just aren't them at all. So a lot of negatives in that super chat. And it's hard to really argue with a ton of them. I mean, the defense has work to do. It feels like that's been trending in the wrong direction recently. The PK has been worse. I don't love the passive PK. The power play, I don't know how much of it is Jess versus Bob Woods, because they're both in charge of running it. So I although talking to Shane yesterday, when I was asking about kind of working in that backdoor spot and the success he had against San Jose, he was talking about, I'll be comfortable wherever Jess puts me. So it sounds like, at least in that situation, she's kind of the point person as far as figuring that stuff out. So it is maybe a bit of a learning curve for Jess as well. I know that she, and yeah, it's Lowry that runs the PK, by the way. It's not Woods. It's Woods and Jess in charge of the power play. But I do wonder if there's a bit of a learning curve there. And I know Jess is a fantastic skills coach, but she probably doesn't have a ton of experience running a power play unit like that. I know she did it in Coachella Valley. They didn't always impress me when I saw them, but something might have to change there. Despite the success last game, I still think overall, the big picture, it's not that good. So let's see. Let's move back down into chat here. We've got a lot of people. This is so definitely some opinionated stuff in here. And then, Kraken fan, how is it possible we can give good teams a run for their money, but the games we should be able to win, we get spanked? San Jose are, bottom of the division. I was asking this question a little bit too in the Ducks games to Dylan. I was saying, are the Kraken just a team that plays up or down to their competition? Maybe they're not, just lagging, but maybe they kind of play up or down. Maybe there's an element of that. I don't know. I think we'll find out on this road trip. We'll see if they play up to the good competition still. I know one of their best games in the last month was against the New York Rangers, a very good team. They still lost that one, but maybe that's what this team actually is. But if so, that's a problem you got to fix, right? Because it shows you can play well. You're not actually that bad. You're just not playing well enough against these bad teams. And then Viren, turns out Dunn doesn't magically fix anything. It's true. I mean, look, Vince Dunn, I think he made an impact in this game positively. He helped the Kraken generate stuff, especially in the first period. But no, he's not the be all end all. If they're going to keep playing like this, he's not going to fix the problems. And especially in a game against San Jose, if he's not going to be the solution there, then this is why I'm so worried about this team. I figured Vince Dunn could be a massive boost for this group and help them reach that next level. But if that was the case, at least through one game, you beat San Jose. Yeah, Maddie, this was a bummer. It sure was. And then, yeah, Milo, do they really need to review that last goal? Yeah, I mean, the league, within the last minute, the league's got to look at everything. So I understand why that rule is there, especially for the close games. But and you do want everything scored correctly. But yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer, especially to have that review just so late, knowing that it didn't really matter, even if it did count. Let's see. A lot of negativity, a lot of, I see the word pathetic in here a few times. And Viren, they are not in the mid range. Believe me, I'm wondering myself if they are out of the mid range, and they playing like this, they are not. Yeah, they are in the bottom of the league type range playing like this. I still think they have enough talent on this team to at least make it into the mid range. They showed it earlier this season, but yeah, not the way they're playing at the moment. Let's see. And I like this one from Chris. Okay, jokes aside, I've been pretty busy this year and have been missed most post games. Oh, wait, here, it jumped on me. Sorry. And I've missed most post games. Sorry, it's been a tough season, but our community is strong and I'm thankful for that. Yeah, absolutely. This is a great community. I am thankful for all of you. And again, sorry for the kind of the negative tone throughout the whole start of this. I'm a little worried about where this team is at. I think I've made that kind of clear, and I'm not good at hiding that sort of thing, but no doubts about where the community is at. We got 120 in here right now after a loss like that. I think that speaks to how strong this community is. And I'm glad that all of you are here with me. Let's take a look at the chat here. Yeah, Onstad agreeing with Firehand. It's a lottery team. Schultz, a very Kraken thing to do would be beating Carolina and going unbeaten on the road trip. Nothing would surprise me from having watched this team for 3 years. Like, there's very little that would surprise me. And look, it wouldn't surprise me to see him just go out and beat Carolina next game, because it would make no sense. It would make absolutely no sense. But that's hockey, right? Anything can happen at any given time. Hunter, so is Ron Francis finally on the hot seat after this one? I have no idea. I have no idea internally what the organization's feeling, because that comes up from the very highest people in the organization deciding Ron Francis's fate. But I'll say he should be. And maybe you give him the whole season, right? Just to see if things turn around. And I think going into the season, I said this on the podcast, I've said it multiple times. If the Kraken don't make the playoffs, that's it. Francis should be gone. I think that's clearly the reasonable expectation. It's the one he sets for himself. There's plenty of time to climb back into the playoff chase, but if this trend continues, yeah, I think the seat should be very hot. Super chat here from JTB. Other than Winterton and Myers, who else could we call up from Coachella? Who else is ready? Feels like some fresh faces are needed. So that is an interesting question, because naturally when you don't do well, you look to some reinforcements from Coachella Valley. And looking at their roster, right? Because you've got Winterton, you've got the Mitchell Stevens call up was interesting to me, because he's not really producing in Coachella Valley. He might be playing all right. I haven't watched a lot of the games, but he had 4 points in 11 games in CV. So that was a bit puzzling to me why he was the call up. But and I see Viren responding, no one else is ready. I would kind of agree with that as far as like the forwards. Like, look, the big two names, the top two scorers left are Edward Chalet and Jagger Firkus. And they are 19 and 20 years old respectively. And I don't think you want to mess with their success and their development by calling them up right now and putting them into this situation and expecting them to be a major part of the solution. That's just not fair to them. I think the veterans have to figure this out. I don't think there's really any reinforcements that could come. Max McCormick's there, but he's been up before. He's not a difference maker. Cale Fleury's not a difference maker. the only guys who could potentially make a difference are Chalet and Furcus, and I just don't like that for their development. I don't think it's the right thing to do. So there really isn't any reinforcements coming from CV that I can see. But and it feels like they've also tried to send a message by calling guys up already, and it just hasn't worked. So let's see. B, the line blender was out in full force, and I don't fully get it. I get that Stevenson being out messes with things, but breaking up the Tolvi Shane Bjorky line felt wrong. They were good last game. I was a little puzzled, by all of the line changes with the forwards. I get that you have to replace Chandler Stevenson somehow, and it does mess with things, but that Shane line was working so well, as you mentioned, B. I don't know why you'd mess with that, especially given the success that Shane has had, wanting to keep him on the right track. I don't understand messing with that one. And I'll go back and kind of take a look at the lines, because I just want to make sure I have them right, because I believe every single forward line changed in this one. So I want to make sure I have it correct. Yeah, but you have, Shane Tolvanen, and you take Bjorkstrand off that line. He was a big part of it. And I guess, you could keep him there. What I would have done, maybe even just switch out Stevens for Stevenson, just straight up, and have Schwartz, Stevens, and Winterton there, and just have that be your fourth line. Just barely play him at all. Like, there's 2 fourth liners on that. Just keep that. That's kind of what I would have done. But it's easy to say in hindsight, but yeah, messing with the Shane line did not work. As we go further down in chat here, Milo, I'm not built to be a hockey fan. I'm way too empathetic toward the goalies. I feel horrible when they get scored on and look sad. It's been a rough week. Yeah, it really has, especially for goalie lovers like you, Milo. And I feel it too. Like, I think anyone, especially who's, played goalie at any level, like they feel that. And I am pretty empathetic toward the goalies as well. This was not Joey Decord's best game. He did have one really rough one that kind of squeaked through him. And, it's tough, right? The Kraken aren't getting the amazing goaltending that they were, whether it's from Joey or from Grew at this point. That's another worry point for me too. What happens when this team stops getting incredible goaltending? And how much was the incredible goaltending from Joey making them look even better than they were when they didn't look that good? And that's another thing I worry about, is just, if that incredible goaltending isn't something you can sustain all season, how do you climb back into this thing? Like, you need Joey to be the Joey that he was at the start of the year, or I guess this kind of stretch that he's had of amazing goaltending. You just need that to have any kind of a chance, it seems like. Let's see. Could he be Kraken? The problem wasn't the refs on the last call. Yeah, I agree with that. Aaron, 1-4 in 5 games against Pacific Division opponents. That's right, because it was a while before the Kraken had played any Pacific Division teams. And also, I think the one win is against Vegas, which that doesn't make any sense, that you've lost to the others, but you've beaten Vegas. So that's interesting. But yeah, it feels like the Vegas game was more of an anomaly than anything. And then Christian, I guess the panic button is reserved for when you actually have a real chance at the playoffs. No, I think the panic button can be out for this season, where the playoffs are the expectation. Look, you're not the San Jose Sharks where you're in the middle of a rebuild. The playoffs were the goal. It's playoffs or bust. Certainly for Ron Francis, it's playoffs or bust. And so I think the panic button can be reserved. I don't know whether I'm ready to press. No, I'll press the panic button right now. I'm ready to press the panic button. I'll go ahead and say it. I'm usually pretty reserved on that, but after these games, I'm panicking at this point. You can probably tell in the way that I'm talking. I have pressed the panic button. Let's see. And yeah, on the tanking thing, because it was brought up a lot yesterday, there's not much of a point to it at the moment. And George saying it's hard to truly embrace the tank, and this is the team for the foreseeable future. And I know, as Kitty B. Kraken pointed out on the last post game too, tanking would involve Ron Francis being a part of it and being on board. And he's never going to be on board with that, right? If you're tanking, you need the GM to be part of that plan, and his job depends on their performance this season. So it's never going to happen as long as Francis is the GM. And then Julia saying, I'm done with Ron Francis. I hope Dan doesn't catch the heat, because this does not feel like his fault. I'm pretty much there with you, Julia. And that's the sad thing too, is if the season does go south and if Francis is gone, chances are it's clean house, right? And any new GM is probably going to want to pick his coach. It's very rare that you have a coach that stays on with a new GM. And so I'm hoping everybody realizes this is not Dan Bilesma's fault, at least to this point. Maybe if it spirals even worse out of control, you can make that argument. But yeah, I'm hoping this won't reflect too badly on him if things continue the way that they've been going. Let's see. Chris, I'm losing my will to watch bad hockey. I didn't feel this way until at least January last season. I mean, it has been rough to watch these last few games. I think this team still has better in them, but I understand that, like, especially these last two on back-to-back days, it can be kind of exhausting. Let's see. And then Viren, I don't think firing Francis helps anything unless the org is willing to go back to the patient approach. Yeah, I mean, you'd need a whole new philosophy, but that's what a new GM would bring if you brought another GM. So I think it solves something in that. Also, it solves something in that, like, look, Ron's not going to sell off this year as long as there's any kind of a chance at making the playoffs because his job depends on it. And so, but a new GM might be willing to make some tough decisions that might need to be made. And lots of the tanking talk. I think I'm going to skip over some of that because, look, we'll address it on the podcast on Monday, and I think that's probably a better forum for it. We can kind of get our thoughts out in a more organized way when talking about what is a very big and heavy conversation there. Let's see. Yeah, more tanking talk. I'm kind of just going to keep scrolling by it here. B, maybe the reason the Kraken never go to the net is because apparently breathing in a goalie's direction a couple inches of the blue paint is interference now. I mean, look, that I know that the call there can be puzzling, but and I know that's probably said somewhat in jest, but you can't let that deter you. Got to have more net front presence with this group. Listen, Daniel, this team glues itself to the boards at both ends of the ice. Yeah, this is a perimeter team, that is for sure. And as I predicted, people are blaming Jess Campbell for the power play and not Bob Woods or the players. Look, I think the players deserve the most blame. At a certain point, you got to go out there and execute on the power play, especially because the power play too. Look, you can draw up whatever, but hockey is still a chaotic game. You have to be able to improvise, and the best power players are the ones that can take advantage of those chaotic situations and improvise and do all those things. So didn't mean to take any of that away from the players because ultimately it's on them. But yeah, it's just hard to know too with the coaches how much of it is Jess versus Bob. But when I asked Shane about the power play yesterday, Jess was the name that came up. So that's why I kind of leaned toward that way. And scroll down a little bit here. Try and see if we can find some stuff. Samantha, forever loved this team, flabbergasted at the play, needs some ECH therapy tonight. Yeah, thank you for being in here, Samantha. Hopefully, I know it's been kind of a lot of the negatives, but hopefully Dylan's always better with the therapy. I think he kind of has the right message of how to deal with the emotions that we're all feeling. Dylan is the much better therapist, I think, and he'll join us in a little bit. So I'll ask him to kind of help with on the therapy side of things as well. I'm just still stuck in trying to analyze everything that I've just seen and break it all down and what it means and maybe what I'm hoping it doesn't mean. So that's kind of still where I'm at. That's the way that I tend to attack things. And Sean, I love this community. We will need each other for this season. Yeah, definitely. If things continue this way, we'll need each other quite a bit, and we'll have each other though. We'll definitely have this community. Let's see. And then Sam pointed out with Juracek officially traded, the two guys picked that were picked directly after Shane, both forced to trade somewhere else. Pretty nuts if you ask me. Yeah, it's pretty uncommon. You don't really see that a lot. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting draft class. That whole year with the missing a time from COVID and the development and all of that stuff. It's going to be a crazy draft class. See, like 20 years from now, how it all turns out. Be very interesting, especially like with Minnesota taking that big swing for Juracek. And as Julia is saying, those are the kind of opportunities a strong GM will take, not 7x7 for Stevenson. Yeah, I mean, those are the opportunities that you can take when you're in a strong position as Minnesota is. The big buyout's about to come off of the books, and you're still a good team and you could take those swings. It's not really a desperation move, it feels like. Even though they did pay a lot to go get Juracek, and I see a lot of people agreeing with Julia there as well. Yeah. And yeah, more from Julia on the draft class most screwed by COVID. It makes sense. A lot of them are struggling. And I agree. Patience with Shane. Like next year, as Dylan says, kind of make or break, but this year we got to have some patience. And then Jessica, 138 in chat after a loss like this. Yay, ECH therapy. Yeah, again, love to see it. Love to see so many people in here, even after a tough loss. Appreciate all of you. And then super chat here from Sean. Sorry if I didn't catch that right away. Sean, are there any Hail Marys for Ron to use considering the whole playoff or bust? Man, the list is kind of running out as far as buttons you can press, things you could do. He's already done call ups from the AHL. He's called up Winterton. He's called up Myers. He's called up Stevens for some reason. He's called up anybody that you could think to help. Really, I guess I mentioned Chalet and Furcus, but they're not fixing this. So he's done that. He's done the minor trade, which was the Daniel Sprong deal. So he's made a small move, which is kind of like the Tatar deal that he did last year, right? Where you make a trade without having to make a big splash or give up too much, or in this case, anything. And that didn't seem to work. Sprong's been a healthy scratch. He didn't do all that well. I mean, you can't, the next thing that a lot of GMs would do is, you could fire the coach, but that's not going to happen, nor should it happen when you've just brought in a new coach this early in the season. You just can't do it. It's not a possibility. I mean, another trade, really, another trade and try and go get a difference maker. That's kind of the only thing he can do. I guess the other thing might be, you waive Grubauer and bring up Steska or even Coco. I mean, that's a real Hail Mary try, right? Maybe hoping that you get a second goalie who can kind of catch fire like Joey Decord did, and you've just got a really good tandem with the two of them. But we've seen, even with really good goaltending, even with top of the league type goaltending, they're barely beating bad teams and they're not beating good teams. So I don't think that. And then Sean asking Kreider. I mean, that is it. That would be a difference maker. That would be a difference maker that you could trade for. And look, I think he would help a lot with the scoring. I don't think he's that level of elite necessarily that, is going to be a proper star. He's a little bit more of what you already have, but I think a little cut above most of the other guys. So I think Kreider could help. The problem with that is, and I, can address it on Armchair GM stream too. Kreider's got a modified no trade clause, and I don't know if Seattle's on it, but if they are, I doubt he'd want to come here. The second thing is that he is 33. He'll be 34 at the end of the season. So he's an aging player who probably should be declining. That's a situation where you're even more just kind of selling out the future for right now. He's going to cost a lot if you can make a deal work. It's going to be some really good prospects. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense for the Kraken. If Ron actually did go ahead and do it, I don't know, I probably wouldn't be in support of it just because of how much that might be mortgaging the future for another shot at just maybe hopefully being mid. I would rather not see that, long-term for this franchise, but I respect the question there, Sean, because yeah, I'm sure he's probably thinking in terms of what can he do because his job's on the line. And then Byron, don't you dare expose Coco to this fan base. Yeah, I'm with you. Do not throw him into this situation. He cannot be made to be the answer at 20, 21 years old, goalie prospect. Absolutely not. Like if they called him up and played him, I'd be pretty upset about that because it's just not fair to him. He needs to develop at the AHL. Even that's a lot for him, but he's handling it very well. And then Stratic, also the Kraken Hockey Network postgame, they have the skill. Very different narrative in here and in ECH Discord. Yeah, no, I mean, their narratives are a little bit different. I understand the position that they are in. But I have to call it how I see it. This is, I have to, like, I know no other way. As we go back in chat here, so there's a lot of chat to go back through. Thank you everybody for being so active in chat. I know Dylan's a lot better at dealing with this, so many messages here. I don't have as much practice, but thank you everybody for bearing with me. Let's see here. And then Sam, for sure about being patient with Shane. It does speak highly of his character throughout the process. Yeah, that's a positive for sure. I mean, Shane has been a true pro through all of this, through whether it was the healthy scratching, the way he's returned from it, the way that he's dealing with this team and the situation they're in. Like he is a pro all the way. He's mature beyond his years. And so I think that also warrants a little bit more patience too, because he's got the right stuff mentally. And then Maddie, I realize the post-game graphic isn't up. Are you saving us from looking at the final score? No, it's just because Dylan's not here yet. Because the post-game graphics for both of us, it's kind of got the two windows on it, so it wouldn't look good. It would kind of block me, which maybe that would be a good thing. You wouldn't have to see my whole face. But yeah, not up yet. It will be up a little bit later. Let's see. As I lost, wow, the chat keeps refreshing, so I keep losing my spot here. Um, there we go. Got it back. Um, Man, I'm gonna need y'all to hold my hands. Yeah, we're gonna need to all hold hands with each other, I think, tonight, and hopefully Dylan will be here soon. I want to get him in on this circle of hand holding and see what he has to say. Onstott, how many did you think were on Joey? I mean, really, just the one that was truly on him. Obviously, the one that leaked through him. I think everyone knows the one I'm talking about. That was the Cunnin goal. Was definitely on Joey, and that's one he needs to stop. And like, I don't want to pile on here, but just for those who would accuse me of having pro Joey bias, like, yes, he absolutely needs to stop that. I don't want to seem like I'm going easier on him than I would on Groove. So I'll just say that much. Everybody knows that, kind of, I mean what I mean there. But maybe that that 3-0 goal for the Sharks too, because he's a little slow kind of locating the puck and getting back to it, but it is a tough bounce off the end boards. But two at most, one for sure. And then let's see. Oh yeah, Sean, Jessica. I mean, I lucky it was not booing the home team. Let's see. Oh yeah, the crowd was creepy quiet. That's what I heard. Again, I wasn't in the building, and Dylan actually texted me. What did he say? I'm gonna go check exactly what his words were. But I said that John Forsland mentioned on the broadcast how quiet it was, and Dylan agreed. Yeah, he said it's unreal how quiet it is. So I mean, apparently very quiet there. But yeah, at least they weren't booing their own team. There was that. But yeah, it feels like the apathy in the building was kind of setting in this one. So that's not good. As Forsland said, that's not good. Let's see. Milo, who would even replace Ron? I mean, that's for the GM thing. That's the kind of thing you have to do an extended search for. There might be an interim GM. Maybe it would be Bottrill because he has experience in that spot before. But really, it should be an off-season wide search. You wouldn't replace him with anybody who was going to take the job long term, I think. Viren, should it be playoffs or bust? That frankly seemed unrealistic at the beginning of the season, and it seems unrealistic now. And I think Dylan and I kind of had this conversation on the podcast at the start of the season where we were talking about expectations for the season, right? Where I think the term was, for as far as playoffs, it was a reasonable, but maybe not realistic expectation. And so, and I agreed with that. Looking at all the models, looking at everywhere this team should be, and all the experts at everything, they would predict that they'd be on the outside of the playoff bubble. So I think it was maybe an unrealistic expectation, but a reasonable one to have for a fan base and for management and for everybody, that after, when you build a team from scratch, you have all the cap space, you have zero committed dollars, you have 4 years to draft, develop, and acquire players. And, most rebuilds, by the 4th year, you're trying to come out of it, that by that point you should be in the top half of the league. So I feel like it is a reasonable expectation, albeit unrealistic. And so that's kind of where I'm at as far as the expectations. And so unfortunately, there is that gap there between what is reasonable and what is realistic. And I think that's a gap that Francis has kind of created by how this roster has been constructed. And then Samantha, I love our boys, but this is so on them, not Dan. Yeah, I agree. It's certainly not on Dan. It's on the group. It's on the players first and foremost. And so it's like, the split between is, the players versus the person who assembled that group of players, but yeah, it's just on this group of players. It seems like that's kind of the common thread here. Saima asking, is this team uncoachable? They might be. I mean, looking at how they've played for 2 different coaches, it's a legitimate question because coaching is the thing that's changed. You've switched that up, right? You have 2 very different coaches in there. The results have been the same. I think you have to look elsewhere. And then Viren, I don't think the impatience came from Francis, though. I think it came from ownership. Yeah, with bringing in the free agents. I mean, that's going to be impossible to ever know for sure. But I'm sure it's a little bit of both, I think. Let's see. Ownership in deep financially, yeah. And Stratic, yeah, we're talking more about the Kraken Hockey Network post game. It's mental. They need to find their game earlier. I mean, I do think there is a side of it that's mental, because we've seen they've been able to play better in the past, and like the bad starts kind of get to me too. And I know they had a lot of chances in the first period too, but it didn't feel like a desperate team coming out there, and desperate in the way that a team in that position probably should be. I just didn't feel the desperation for watching that group, and so that kind of worried me that maybe things might go the wrong way tonight. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of people not wanting them to double down for the playoffs, given where things are at. And then Steven, if this is the product when the Sonics return, there will be 5,000 people in the building for home games. I do find interesting though, like the attendance has been good. And that's the unfortunate part with how they're playing at the moment too, is that like the attendance has been good this season. Every game's been a sellout. I thought maybe there would be a non-sellout by this point, but there hasn't been. The building's been pretty darn full. And I'll have to ask Dylan. I don't know. I wasn't there tonight, but from TV, at least through the lower bowl, it looked pretty full. And so it feels like the fans are showing up. They're turning out, right? They've been as loyal as can be. So at some point that probably has to break, but I'm pleasantly surprised to see that it hasn't yet. So, hopefully the fans keep coming out, but it can't continue forever. And Scott, yeah, it doesn't help when you lose a captain and a veteran in Eberle too. Yeah, losing your captain absolutely sucks. And I'm sure, I doubt he's around the team. I haven't seen him around. He certainly didn't make the trip to San Jose. He's probably still in a hospital bed after having surgery on his pelvis. When your leader, it's not just that he's not playing for you, but he's not even around. I feel like that has to make a difference. And I think I even asked Dylan about that on the podcast, because it just seemed kind of so obvious to me, even though, leadership isn't really all that quantifiable, but I still think that, there is something that he brings. Let's see here. Yeah, please, for the love of God, don't get an old player who's expensive to get for this team. I'm with you. I don't think that would be the right direction to go. Kyle, I'd say Marner, but that would never happen until off season. Yeah, that would be an off season type conversation. And of course, the more you lose, the harder it is to maybe sell him on coming here. But money talks. Maybe if that's all he's looking for, then that could be something. And Julia Berube seems to love Marner. Yeah, I think he's still staying in Toronto. I'd be surprised to see him move. Let's see. Yeah, Dunn and Montour had an almost 4-minute shift in the game. Welcome back, I guess. I know. Yeah, that shift, seeing like they were putting on a push. They were not holding back on the ice time. I mean, good to see that Dunn stood up to it pretty well. Like that was good to see that he can handle that kind of ice time. So that's a positive to take out of this one, is that Dunn is back. He played a lot, and he looked all right. So let's see. Fusion Mix, if the Panthers could survive being the Panthers for 30 years, the Kraken can survive a basketball team coming to town while being mid. Yeah, definitely. The Kraken can survive it for sure. I mean, they'll still be around. They'll still do their thing. I just think it's about how big the fan base can really grow. And I think this is a kind of a unique opportunity to not have to compete with the Sonics for attention, when going forward, you always will, even if you are pretty good. So yeah, and I think, yeah, the Kraken will be okay. It's just a matter of, do you have this kind of smaller group of really loyal diehard fans, or do you kind of have a broader appeal? Super chat here from DDB. I feel like Berkey is a microcosm for the team. His confidence is wrecked, and he doesn't play like season 2 shooter Berkey anymore. Same guy, but not. I do think that is a good point there, as far as just Berkey being a microcosm for everything going on, because look, he's not playing terribly. Like, he's had some good moments this season, but it does feel like the confidence isn't really fully there. He's not really doing his thing. And if something does feel off, and unfortunately, Berkey with that turnover on the first goal against tonight, like that's a bad play. Like, that helps lead to the Sharks being able to take it back and make you pay. And it's tough too with the line mates. I'm going to go again and check what the lines. Yeah, he was with Yanni and Jared McCann. I didn't love that line tonight. I could go on Money Puck and just kind of see what their numbers were, but I didn't love that line. Just on paper, it feels like there wasn't a ton of fit there. Kind of have a little bit of everything, and it just felt like a leftovers line type of thing. Like, Berkey was back to being on a leftovers line. but yeah, I mean, and it's not loading for me. So yeah, that's also a microcosm. There you go. The fact that it's that the page isn't loading for me to see how Berkey did. As I scroll here, yeah, kind of middle of the pack among the Kraken. Let's look at the lines. So as far as expected goal share, well, that's the thing. All the lines are pretty high. All the lines are like over 64% expected goal share, but so much of that is score effects. The fact that the Kraken were down 4-0, the Sharks were sitting back defending, and the Kraken were going to get a lot of those shots. So if I ran all the lines were leftovers lines, yeah, it really did feel like that tonight. As much as we give Chandler Stevenson a hard time and are critical of him, and I certainly am, like I don't think he's played all that well. The Kraken are certainly a better team with him in the lineup than without him. That's for sure. He actually does fill a hole that if you have Mitchell Stevens in the lineup, you've got to move everything around. So yeah, that's I think that's the case. Oh, I see Dylan in chat. Where did I miss him? Where's Dylan? What does Dylan have to say? Because it is taking a while. What did Dylan say? Where's Dylan? I'm sure I scrolled right past him and missed him. Where's Dylan? There we go. Still waiting on Dan. Sorry for everyone. Yeah, interesting that it is taking this long as we get to the 40-minute mark here. I really wonder what Dan's going to say after this one. So we'll get Dylan on hopefully pretty soon. But yeah, I imagine generally after a game like this, when a team's down like this, it either is very short or very long to get everybody, and this is the very long variety. So hopefully we'll get Dylan sooner rather than later. And Maddie, I think this does a good job kind of summing it up to the way I feel. I definitely feel like this team is better than how they've been playing. The longer the season goes on, the more I'm unsure about that. Yeah, I feel like I still have a lot of questions. I'm unsure. Like, are they really this bad? Because I've seen them be this bad for almost a month, but are they really? And I'm still trying to process that in real time as I'm on video with all of you. That's kind of what my mind is still going through and trying to figure out. And Christian, Seattle fans are loyal to the bitter end, though, so hopefully that carries through with the Kraken. I have a feeling it will. I mean, the fact that, look, that we have so many in chat here, right? After a game like this, that speaks to the loyalty of Seattle sports fans. That is for sure. And that Seattle might not always have the best teams. Man, they've got the best fans. And so if whatever happens, the Kraken have that going for them. They'll always have Seattle sports fans. And so I think there is going to be that resilience. As I see, we're up over 150 now. So awesome to see that. So many people in chat. I'm sure waiting for Dylan to arrive and see what Bilesma and the players had to say. Chris, the biggest thing, Kraken cannot become the NHL Mariners. So do whatever voodoo we have to voodoo, or whatever voodoo we have to do. Yeah, I know Lindsay's the expert on that, what kind of rituals you need to do. But yeah, hopefully the Kraken aren't the NHL Mariners. If you should mix the NHL Mariners or the Buffalo Sabres. See, that's already taken. They can't be. Let's see. And yeah, I do wonder if, like, the fact that Dan is so late, I wonder if that might be talking to the team. I wonder if that is having maybe a longer conversation with either all the players or the leadership or whoever it is. I wonder kind of why he is missing that time, or he's this late. Viran, which teams that started rebuilding 4 years ago are in the playoffs now? Okay, I checked the standings here, but and remember when the rebuilds started, but this is going to take too much. This is going to take more time than I have right now to do. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the teams that are in playoff spots right now are teams that the teams that have been good for a little while, and maybe rebuild can take a little bit longer, but you kind of have to bottom out roughly for about 4 years. But still, I think the Kraken had a good position to start with, better than a rebuilding team, because they had all that cap flexibility. I won't get into my whole expansion draft manifesto and everything, but I do think the Kraken had a better spot than a team going into a rebuild, because they had a blank slate cap wise. Pablo asking, RJ, do you think Jess Campbell is a good coach? I do think she's a good coach. I think she is an excellent skills coach. I think she is, one of the top skating coaches probably in the whole world. The fact that she's gotten to this point and what she's done with people skating, and you could even see it with Matty Beniers this year and how his skating has changed. So I think she is a fantastic skills coach, fantastic skating coach. I still don't know about the tactics, the systems, the running a power play, because I can't see behind the scenes. I don't know how much is her and how much is Bob on the power play, so I don't know how to properly evaluate her there. And that's kind of been the big part of her job, and so it's really hard for me to evaluate. But yes, I do think she's a good coach, and she is among the best in the world at what she is best at. Only way to speed up a build is for Panera to choose you. I mean, that certainly does help. Let's see. And Brooke wants Berkey bench so bad. I mean, it will be interesting to see. Look, because at this point, with how the team's playing, Bilesma could theoretically healthy scratch anybody, right? I mean, not Jared McCann, not Brandon Montour, but like, a lot of these guys that we've been maybe talking about, like he could theoretically bench anybody he wanted right now. And I do wonder if when Berkey sees his term, I know that, Dan was kind of trying to make that work. All right, we've got Dylan. He's getting on here pretty soon. Just waiting for him to give me the thumbs up here. So I'm going to move to the bottom of chat, by the way. So if there's anything I skipped over, feel free to put it back into chat, or any questions for Dylan, put it in the chat and let him have it there. So Dylan's getting ready. He's giving me the thumbs up. All right. Welcome, Dylan. Time at Pledge Arena. Kind of an unusual setup for us here, but look, this has been a pretty negative post-game live. I'll go ahead and say people really asking some kind of long-term existential stuff, but I want to know about the right now, about tonight. What was the reaction from the players and from Dan after a new low for this team this season?
From the players, I think the big takeaway was brutal honesty. I think that's what I would say from them. We got Vince Dunn and we got Jared McCann. And I think the biggest takeaway from Vince Dunn that I found most interesting anyway, beyond the fact that, he's back and what it felt like to get back out there after 6 weeks and all of that kind of stuff, which was all what you would expect. The big thing that I took from Vince Dunn was he was kind of asked, what's going on with this team, right? Like the big question is, you've lost these last 3 games. What's going on? You guys are playing well. And, the subtext to the question is you just lost to some bad teams 3 times in a row. And Vince Dunn said that one of the things he thinks is happening and that they have talked about this and they had a meeting earlier today about it was just for guys to kind of stick to just their job. Don't be trying to do too much. Don't be trying to do other people's jobs out there on the ice. Just kind of simplify things a little bit and just go out there and play is kind of the vibe that I got from that answer. And I don't entirely hate that. I think that this is a team that right now is way up in their own heads about what they're doing out there on the ice. We've talked about this before, right? Like I've brought this up. It looks like a team that is trying to do too much at a lot of different points in time. We talked about this yesterday with when they feel like they need to step up and get a goal, everybody starts going on that rush. And then if there's a turnover, we saw it tonight with one of those goals, that 2-on-1 opportunity, things just get going back the other way and there's nothing you can do about it. And then it just compounds the problem because now you're down another goal and now you've got to sell out even more potentially. You're feeling like it's a team right now that feels like everybody's got to be the guy who has to step up and go out there and potentially be the hero. And I think the message from the coaching staff right now is just to settle down, play hockey, and things will come if we just kind of make sure we're focused on the little things and doing those right.
Interesting. Yeah, that is an interesting message that kind of sent to the team. And certainly, I mean, Bob Woods was talking about it on the broadcast at the intermission, just saying, we just got to stop turning the puck over in the neutral zone, the offensive zone. Like we're trying to do too much. We're not taking care of the puck and it leads to these rushes against us. Anything else from Dan or from the players that kind of stood out after this one?
Yeah, I mean, they talked like Jared McCann talked a little bit about the games upcoming and talked about like, look, they are a group that knows that they can beat good teams. They can go out there and play well against good teams. They've done it already this season. Even if they haven't always gotten a victory, they've at least played well in those games, right? And I think we could all think of those games. Colorado, Winnipeg, the Rangers here not that long ago kind of all come to mind as examples of the team playing good teams, at least close, if they can't actually get the win. Dan was interesting. And I mean, I'm sure you got a very similar Dan yesterday to what I got today. I would not say his normal self, right? To put it mildly. I just think he's somebody who knows kind of what needs to happen and is probably preaching it, and it's not happening. And I think it's a frustrating spot to be in. He did come out extremely late. Sorry for you having to hold down the fort here for so long. It was late enough that somebody did ask kind of where he was, what was going on. Was it a meeting with anybody specific or in particular? And he said no, it was just with him and his staff, and they were just going over things from the game. Seems a long time to be doing something like that. He tried a lot of different things in this game. The line blender was out in full effect. He tried something you and I had brought up, which was, Vince Dunn and Brandon Montour out there together on the power play. Dan was cooking as much as he could. Jess Campbell on the bench on this one was cooking as much as she could. She was constantly trying to come up with stuff. She was talking to the offensive group, the forwards. She would then stand up, shout stuff down to Bob Woods. Bob Woods would communicate to the defense. There was a ton of communication from the coaching staff to the players. They were trying to get something going. And the bottom line is the players were just not able to do so. And I think that, if I'm a member of that coaching staff, if I'm the head coach, that would be frustrating, because you are trying, you're seeing things, you're trying to make adjustments, you're trying to, right now in this case, plug holes, but that's it.
Yeah, I'm sure the coaching staff is just trying to figure out how to maybe even get through to this room. We even got the question, has Dan lost the room, or is this group uncoachable? We've had a lot of those types of questions. I mean, where do you stand as far as the players needing to get this thing done, coaching adjustments that can be made? There's been a lot of big picture talk here, and I'm kind of curious your thoughts on that.
Look, I think a coaching change would be bad. Whether I'm starting to doubt some of the system work, right? And I'm not talking about like, I think the power play needs to maybe try something here or there. I'm starting to doubt the concept of being a team that skates, being a team that's going to go out there and try to go up the ice and do all that stuff that Dan talked about during training camp. Not because I think that that's a bad strategy. I just don't think this personnel group is capable of doing it. And, I don't think then the coach should have to fall on that sword personally. I think Dan is doing the right things, but the personnel group is just not necessarily going to do it. I think, look, this is a personnel group assembled by one person, largely. I would say that that's then where you would go to make some sort of change. I think personnel groups can change, even if you don't change who they are. I think you can change a team. You can change an identity. You can change the effort level of a group. You can do all of that stuff without having to swap out multiple pieces. I do think that is possible. You and I have both seen examples of that around the NHL. Sometimes it's just one guy changes, players just start to get a different mindset. It looked like we kind of had that earlier this season with Jordan Eberle, right? Just being the captain, and that seemed to have done it for a little while. And now here we are, he's out, and the wheels have fallen off the bus. So I think that all of that stuff is possible. Without needing large full-scale changes. I know we're going to talk about like some of the bigger concepts like a rebuild, whatever, on the deep dive. But I really think that this is one of those situations that could be, it is salvageable. It just takes a number of people willing to put in the work. And I just don't know that that's going to happen right now, whether it's the personnel stepping up and doing what needs to be done, or it's the person in charge of personnel making a key move or two.
Right. And that was something that was talked about a little bit before you got here too. Different buttons that Ron Francis could press, even talk about some Hail Mary move that he could make to try and improve this group. What do you think can be done, or things that you would try, I guess, if you were either Francis or Bilesma, take your pick. And, Andrew, you've asked, like, give me some hope, RJ, like what hope is there? And I know you said it's just guys putting in the work, but, maybe what does that look like?
Go out and get a power forward It's what this team needs. They need a more consistent net front presence. They need somebody who's going to stand up for their guys, somebody who's going to set that tone and be that play. You go out and you get a power forward, right? And I think that's what this team needs. I think that's something that Ron Francis could do. I'm being told John Hayden from behind the camera, and I mean, look, John Hayden. The team does play different when John Hayden's in the lineup. I think you might want to, if you can, try to go out and get somebody that can also, put the puck in the net a little bit more consistently than John Hayden. But as you're having to call guys up right now, you might as well give a John Hayden a go. I think that's a lot of what, the complaints or critiques that the community has been coming up with. I think that somebody who is doing, somebody who would play that way would answer some of that. I think if you go out, if you're looking to make one move, you go out and you find a good power forward and you bring them in and you work with them and you have them kind of start setting the tone for the forward group right now. Otherwise, I mean, there's other things you can do. I mean, I don't want to get too into the whole potential rebuild. I think this team could do a retool, but it would take making trades like the one we saw earlier today, where there's a struggling young player somewhere and you go out and you acquire them and you bring them in. And I know this maybe doesn't help you so much this year, but I think that it's a good move long-term for the franchise to bring in guys like a David Juracek when they need to be moved. I know Wrecker McGroarty got moved, and I know he's not having the greatest time in the AHL right now, but those are the kinds of moves that realistically, I think this is where the franchise is at. Bring those guys into the organization. We saw a young guy in Ryan Winterton tonight look a lot better than yesterday, just having that one game under his belt. He was very consistent. He had a ton of effort. Ty Karche had a ton of effort. These are guys that can be grinders. They can be a little bit of that power forward guy, but I think you need to bring in somebody who's just, kind of them, but more.
Right. And I think that might that might help. But there was talk about the Juracek trade too, about these are the kind of things that GMs who are in a position of strength can do and the kind of deals that they can make, rather than maybe some of the desperation moves like we saw this offseason with the Stevenson deal. It's just a different position that these teams are in, and it kind of helps you operate. Now, as far as those buttons they could press, the Hail Marys they could do, can I give you just a few, just quick, rapid response? Yes or no? Just yes or no. Should the Kraken do it? Ready? And these are all ones that have been suggested or brought up here somewhere. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Trade for Chris Kreider. Quick.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Call up Edward Chalet.
No.
Okay. Trade away Yanni Gord.
Yes.
Okay. Fire Bob Woods.
No.
Wave Grubauer. Call up Alex Steska.
No.
Okay. Those are the quick ones that I had. If anyone else has any more,
I can give you really quick, brief explanations for all those too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chris Kreider does play exactly the kind of game that I was thinking that you'd need. Go bring in somebody like that. He's going to play the way. He's going to set the tone. He's going to be a veteran presence that all the guys are going to respect, and he can be that guy for you. Chalet's not ready. Let him cook. Let him build confidence. He's so on the right development track right now, but you got to be patient with him. After the season he had last year, already the turnaround in the brief bit of games that he's played this season, it's been remarkable. It's more than what you would normally see. Don't push it, I think, right? Would be the message there. What was the next one? Trading Yanni. I think it's just it is a personnel mix-up. I think having at least one of those is probably a good idea right now, especially if you bring in another NHL player for him, potentially somebody like a Chris Kreider, right? So I'm down with that. I do not think that Stezzy's going to give you better stuff than Grubauer. I just don't. So I don't think that would be worth doing. And then what was the other one? There's one more.
Fire Bob Woods.
Fire Bob Woods. The defense is not the problem here.
And also related to the power play as well.
Okay. You could demote him maybe from the power play, but you know what? The power play is trying stuff, right? Like we saw it yesterday. They are creating looks where Shane Wright is able to be open for a one-timer. It's just a matter of reps to get the guys to start looking in that direction. We were seeing stuff like Vince Dunn and Brandon Montour being out there, and Jared McCann being in a position to use a one-timer. I swear, it's like Bob Woods listened and Jess Campbell listened to the podcast we
It's
did
exactly
this
what we
past
talked
week.
about,
It's
right?
all the stuff we talked about. So, if I was to be on board with firing the person who's doing what I suggested, that doesn't speak highly of how I view my own opinions, does it? So I'm not on board with firing Bob Woods. I think you got to give him time. We know that power plays generally, when they have a new person in charge, and in this case, two new people in charge, that first year is not great. It is a roller coaster ride. It's usually once you have multiple years of consistency under them that the power plays start to really grow and turn into something. And then also defensively, like I've been saying this last little bit, a lot of the defensive issues this team has is not coming from the D-core. It is coming from the forwards and their back checking.
Right. And I think you'll find a lot of agreement with most of what you just said from the people in chat, except the Chris Kreider thing. I think a lot of people, the overwhelming majority, were against the Kreider
because
trade.
everybody wants the future stuff, and that's a very short-term deal,
Yes.
right? Like, I mean, right, that's what it is. But here's the thing. I would rather do something like that short term, know if he makes a difference, because if Chris Kreider can't make a difference with this group and core, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know.
Tear it down to the studs. Like there's,
Right,
yeah.
right. I think he would make a difference. I think he's exactly what they need. I think you get the most out of somebody like a Shane Wright, having a guy like Chris Kreider for him to learn from. I think there's a lot of benefits to adding somebody like him, even if he's not going to be a part of the long-term plan. I think the foundation that having somebody like that in your locker room could build on a team that very much still has an unset foundation is really important.
Yeah, and I like what he would bring. I just worry, obviously, the whole situation around it.
Yeah.
What it would
Your
cost, I
GM
get
brain
that.
doesn't like it.
Yeah, no, of course, that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah, the GM brain hates it, absolutely hates it. But no, I love the player. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So we got Stratic saying, I want Will Borgen to have fun, referencing the shirts and everything. But
don't know that he is right now. Doesn't look like many of them are having fun, if any.
No, but I'm curious if anyone thought about scratching him, and I'll kind of expand that really to a question about just the D as a whole, right? Because we saw a pretty big shift in the D pairs, right? You have Vince Dunn coming back. Interestingly, you have Riker Evans going with Brandon Montour. That's not something we've really seen much before. And then you have Alexiak Borgen, a pair that I know you're maybe not the biggest fan of. What'd you think of the D pairs tonight? And would you make any changes going forward?
Dunn Larson, they were basically back to normal. Vince Dunn, it's obvious there's a little bit of rust. He just needs to play a little bit more hockey. He's been out for a while. But even still, I didn't think Vince Dunn looked bad tonight at all. It was mostly stuff like just kind of, some missed offensive plays here or there that, it just takes a little time to get back into. I think that pair is fine. Riker with Monty was not kind of as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was a little worried because it's two offensively minded guys out there. I was a little worried that, how is that going to play in the defensive zone? They actually kind of had a pretty good chemistry in the defensive zone as far as that unspoken, bond that guys have to know of, like, okay, I'm going to be going and chasing here. You're going to have to cover the net front and vice versa. I thought they actually handled that pretty well, considering, as far as I know, this is really the first time they've played significantly with each other. So I think there's some potential there, and it allows you to have another pairing that you can throw out there for 25 minutes a night, and it's going to, in theory, give you positive puck possession. So I like that one. I still do not like Alexiak Borgen. I just don't think that pairing works. I think you sub out Will Borgen and you put in Josh Mahura. Josh Mahura was a great, stable third pairing defenseman. There's no reason to mess with that. Just stick him in there and let him and Alexiak kind of clean things up while those bigger units for you take a rest.
Yeah, I'll agree with most of that, right? I mean, Mahura, I think, is just a better fit for that if you're going to keep Evans, Montour together. Yeah. And they looked a lot smoother than I thought they would. I was actually really impressed by that deeper. I thought it might be a disaster waiting to happen, but it certainly wasn't. And then Maddie thinks Mahura is playing better than Borgen right now. Yeah, I think so. As much as I hate to say it, I feel like I'm Borgen's biggest defender, but maybe he's one of those guys that could benefit from the healthy scratch. Brooke okay, well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I'm not Borgen's. Yeah, Brooke is Borgen's biggest defender. That's for sure. But I'm one of the biggest defender. I'm his biggest, most common, frequent defender to you.
Yes,
that is true. To you the
that
most.
Is true. Yes,
that
is true.
So, but yeah, I mean, Chris even asking what would Kreider cost? Like, I mean, it depends because the Rangers want to contend now. I mean, you probably have to do like maybe McCann or Bjorkstrand plus like a Rakoff Furkish Chalet. He'd be expensive.
Maybe. Yeah, he would be expensive, but like you're looking to move somebody out anyway. Yeah. So
I'm not making a case about whether you should or shouldn't do it. I'm just trying to figure, say the price. That's all.
Yeah,
it would be expensive.
An NHL player and either a first or a top prospect, probably.
Yeah. Yep.
How much does he have left on his deal? Is he a rental?
No, he's got I think 2 years left. Yeah. I don't know if it's 2 after this one or just this one and the next one. Let me check real quick. Yeah, he's got 2 after this one. So he does have some time left at 6.5, which is a good number for what he brings. So that provides some value as well.
Yeah, and again, I think there's a lot of prospects in this system that are kind of at peak value right now, and they do represent kind of good sell high opportunities. So just saying.
Yeah, no, I like
guys that'll be niche contributors long term, but have value now before they kind of get there, and it's clear that they're going to be niche contributors. So I know everybody loves all the prospects and stuff, but I actually think that, again, making a move like that is really not that bad for this group.
Yeah, and then Sarah, who I know is quite familiar with Vancouver. Any thoughts on Höglander? Rumor is Van wants to move him. I think he's just another complimentary piece. He doesn't really go above what they already have, and he's certainly not a power forward.
He's not a power forward. No, I mean, it would be like
5'9", like 185. Yeah,
I was gonna say like kind of like a smaller, faster Tanev, maybe like at best. I don't know that he adds much to you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think very much. And I like from Brooke Borgen Defenders. Yes.
Yep.
Love that. So I'll kind of do. There's still so much in chat. I feel like, and we still have 150 people. I don't even know how long to go with this, because I feel like there's still lots of people that want to talk about things. Like I throw a last call, but there's still a whole bunch of stuff we haven't gotten through. And I know at some point we're going to have to kind of end this here.
Yeah.
I mean, swimming in the wave, how do you feel? And I'll just do another rapid fire. How do you feel trading Schwartz, Berkey, Tolvey? Schwartz feel totally fine, but I don't think you could. I think you'd have to give up something to get rid of him. Berkey, I'd love it, but you'd have to give up a lot to get rid of him. So, more than you'd want to. And then Tolvey, I mean, you'd probably just trade him away for free. I wouldn't mind it, I guess. I don't know.
Look, I don't think this team can build their way out of it through free agency, right? Like, and basically what you'd be doing in any of those trades is, realistically, to get rid of them, is you'd be trading them for nothing. Basically, you're going to be trading them for nothing, for expiring contracts. Probably you're going to be giving up picks to do it, just so that you can then have cap space come off the off season or for free agency. And I don't, that doesn't help you, right? Like, free agency is not the answer. I think trading for established assets is what you need to do. The problem is nobody's going to be looking for those guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, it's tough because you have to give to get. You have to have things that other people want, and that's that's the difficulty of making trades. So we'll kind of close things out here. I mean, first of all, we got Sean's supersized pod on Monday. You know what? I think it might be a pretty long one. There's a lot to discuss, and clearly a lot of discussion still going on in here, but I think the podcast is going to be a better place for us to kind of really break it all down and think through it all for sure. And then we'll close it out here with this super chat from Michael, and big thank you to Michael. Just want to send the super chat to thank you for all the great post-game discussion. Also, I think the ECH community was asking about a group watch party. And yeah, there were a couple of messages in there earlier. I want to wait till you were on, just to asking about a watch party, because we do need to make that happen. And I know we're kind of working towards seeing some options here, but yeah, we got to get everyone together fairly soon. I'm sorry, what?
We needed road games. Like,
I know, seriously, that's been the biggest issue as we've been working through this. I know that's the thing. We've needed road games. They've been at home like the whole time. So we've been having to do this. As soon as things lighten up a little bit with some road games, which we will be getting soon, like Dylan and I are going to get right on that. We'll figure out a date and we'll get everyone together. Cause I know, Dylan, you love lots of being up here. You get to see all the people at the rink and everything, but I know you've been wanting to have that first watch party since coming up here. So we'll make sure to make that happen. And thank you everybody for asking about it. We will get that going. It's just, and we love that everyone wants it to happen too.
Yeah.
We love to see that. So sorry, I'll let you talk, Dylan, if you have anything to say on that.
No, I mean, really the big thing was just like, yeah, we know it's got to happen. We want it to happen. I'm very much looking forward to it. It has just been brutal, this stretch of home games. I mean, we're almost at half of all the road games for the season, RJ, and it's still technically for another hour or so, November.
That's right. I know it's been heavily front loaded on these home games. So the schedule's going to look a little bit different as we get later in the season. So we'll have a lot more opportunity for some great stuff like that, and to see everybody in person, because I can't wait to actually watch a hockey game with you guys that can come out to a watch party. And then real quick from Emma, though, any chance to meet you guys at Climate Pledge during home games? Yeah, we can definitely, if you're there, just reach out to us on any of our social media, like send us a DM, send us a comment. We'd be happy to come down and meet any of you who want to meet up. So just letting you know there, or anybody who's watching this or listening to it, we're always happy to do that. Just reach out to us on social media. We'll see and we can figure out a time to meet up. Yeah, I think Kitty B Kraken last. Can Dylan still get out of the building? We're about to find out.
Yes.
So hopefully he's not trapped in there, as we're already past the hour 10-minute mark. And I know everyone in chat, it feels like, could stay for another couple hours. But unfortunately, we do have to close this one out on this edition of ECH Post Game Live. I don't even know what's next. What is it? Carolina.
Look, it is on paper a rough road trip. I will tell you that Dan was excited's not the right word, but he did say that there is a benefit to going and playing, tough teams, I think was the word that was used, in the sense that, like, basically what he was implying, I won't try to paraphrase anything here. What he was implying was, when you go out there to play a good team, that you have to give full effort. And when you play teams like the Ducks and the Sharks, that can maybe sometimes be a challenge to get the guys to maybe do that, right? And that goes for all teams. Like, this is not a unique thing to this Kraken team. There is a reason that even the worst teams in the NHL every year win like 25 games, right? So, there is a component to that. But if you want a little glimmer of hope, it is that this team has played good teams close this season. We saw it as recently as that Rangers game. Maybe something happens, right? I mean, it's hockey. Things like that do happen.
Yeah, they do. And I was kind of tired of the games that maybe felt like they weren't the biggest challenge opponent wise. And it's just going to get more fun because of that. And so I promise I'll close this out. I keep reading more chats, but on this one from Samantha, glad to be here for the first time tonight. I do feel better. Well, I'm thankful for you two and everyone supporting this team. Yes, happy to hear it. This is your first experience with Emerald City Therapy. That kind of is how it goes after a game like this. We all somehow end up feeling a little better because we've talked it out with each other. And so glad to have you here, Samantha, for the first time, hopefully not the last, with us on ECH Post Game Live. And thank you, everybody, so many of you who joined us after this game. And we will see you all next time.